Hey there, my sweet friends. Welcome or welcome back if you're new. I hope you are all well. Well, it does seem that there is an endless variety of ways to add envelopes to your minis or your folios for the purpose of creating pockets, and we're going to work on one of those today. I have not made one in this fashion before, so this isn't new to me, but I'm pretty excited because it was easy to make, and it does add a great amount of space inside to add all of those fun inserts and images from the collection that we want to add. So this is going to be a folded folio with envelope pockets. If that sounds good to you, then stick around and we'll make it together. So I'm working with this Let's Go Camping collection. This is from Echo Park, and I really love this. We are camping people, or I should say we are RVing people, and so this really speaks to me. Now we are at the tail end of our 6-week adventure. We've been traveling around Michigan and staying by the beautiful Great Lakes here, and we're having such a good time. So I think this is absolutely perfect, and it would be a fun way to capture the pictures and the memories that I've taken from our adventure. Now, like I mentioned, we are going to be working with envelopes, and I'm going to substitute this white paper today for the colorful cardstock that I'm going to be using in our finished book. And that's just because I want to mark on here and indicate where I'm going to cut, and I think it will just be easier to see on this white piece of paper. So of course, we're using our envelope punch board, and if you have one of these, I don't need to show you how to work it, but I will say that I'm going to make an envelope that is meant for a card that is 4 by 6. And so I'm going to cut my paper to be 8 1/4 by 8 1/4, and then I will follow the directions here. It directs me to use the 3 3/8 line to punch and score, and so I'm going to do that here. Now I have already punched and scored this sample, and I'm just going to fold this up here very carefully. I would typically take the time to burnish this side down with my score tool just to get a good crisp crease, but so you get the idea, I'm going to fold all of the pieces in, and then I'll pull some of them out just so that I can get at what I need to mark. And so because I want to flip this envelope on its side and still have it as a top loading pocket, we have to fold some of these pieces in, and then we also have to trim. I mean, I guess you don't have to trim, but I think it just looks extra nice that way. So I'm going to fold my bottom portion up, and then I'll indicate a line here from the point of this all the way up to where it lands on the end of this portion. And so I find it to be much easier just to come in with my T-square ruler, and I'm just lining that up along the bottom of my envelope, and then I will mark from the end all the way up on that flap. And then of course I do want to open that flap up and then come back in and finish that line. And this is just going to be where I cut that portion off, and that makes this pocket a little bit easier to use. And so I would come in now and clip this part off. You don't have to be exactly precise, but get a good straight line going through. And so this is going to be the base for your pocket. Now you will want to fold this side in and then the top also. The reason we're keeping that in place firstly is because it is going to add a great amount of bulk to this book, and we do want our minis to be very sturdy and very solid. And then also it's going to give us a very nice finished edge along the sides here. We're going to get that beautiful crisp score line. So we do want to finish the inside of the pocket before we close it up. And then I did also want to add some pattern paper to these flaps. Now that's an option. I think it looks perfectly nice without it, but since I'm trying to get through my collection, I do want to just continue using that up. And so I have my envelope here, and I do want to share with you that I'm going to add my pattern here, and then I'll cut that out, and then I'll add my pattern here and cut it out. So we're going to just get beautiful straight lines. We don't have any inside curves, and it will be very easy to cut. I did think that this very small pattern from the collection would work great. This has a very low contrast, and so it's going to really work more as a neutral, but it is going to get us a nice finished look on our pocket. So what I want to do is pull my double-sided tape backing from here. And I am going to be mindful of where that pattern's going to fall. Firstly, you want to determine on which side your pocket will be. So I want my pockets to have the crisp edge on the outside and then tuck the things into it, and that way they will be extra secure. So I know I want these little trees to be going up and down for this side. So I'll just flip that over, and since I have a nice square edge here, I'll just add this to this full sheet of pattern paper. And then you see when I pull that over, I can just clip off the excess, and that's going to give me a perfect layering of my pattern paper. So I'll just do that now. Okay, so as you can see, I have that clipped out and it is perfectly layered over top of that. Now I want to come in and do this portion as well. And keeping in mind where the direction of those little trees go. And I'm going to try and get this lined up as carefully as I can. Now, of course, on this one, I'm going to be adding a few more layers. So if I don't get it on exactly straight, I think it will be hidden under those additional bits. So while I am doing this, I will mention that you may hear some noise in the background, and that will just be our neighbors. They are a lovely group of people. There are 3 campers, and they are kind of converging on one little area to visit and hang out. They are playing some music and having a cornhole championship. So they have been a lot of fun to have as neighbors, and so I am hopefully going to get through this before they get their music turned on for the day. So now we have our pattern paper here, and you can see I did get those trees in the right order. So the next thing I want to do is just go ahead and tack these bits down with a little bit of our double-sided tape. Not necessary to go all the way around. And I like to put the side in first and then the top. That way I don't get that extra cut piece here. I do want to finish the inside of the pocket before we seal it up. And so I'm going to switch to this fun moose pattern. This piece is going to be 6 1/4 by 4 1/8. And that's going to give us a little bit of a border there. When we got the envelope finished, it was a size of 6 3/8 by 4 1/4. So adding this layer is going to give us that nice border. Now we want to seal this up. And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to add my adhesive only here so that I don't accidentally seal up my pocket. Of course, I do want to use a combination of my 2 glues so that I am certain it is well secured. As I mentioned, you could skip the pattern paper for this, but I did want to get this used up. So I'm going to add it wherever I can. And then just fold that over. So this is going to be one of our pockets, and we need 2 finished pockets for this project. I'll go ahead and set that aside while that glue sets up, and we can work on the cover. So I do have my little cheat in place where I'm using my Post-it notes with the numbers on them to keep everything in the right order. And so our first piece is going to be 6 3/8 by 9 inches wide. I'm going to score it at 4 1/4 and also 4 3/4. So our outside spine is going to be 1/2 inch. And then I have 2 of these pieces here, and they measure 6 3/8 high by 8 3/4 wide, scored at 4 1/4 and also 4 1/2. So the inside spines are going to be 1/4 inch. So let's pull these off now. And then of course you do want to continue with that 2 glue combo for the cover to make sure it is well secured. We have these planned to open outward, so I'm going to flip this over and then I'll line this up right along that score line to make sure that everything works properly and fits well, just keeping that nice and straight and even across the side and the bottom. And then I'll repeat that for this side, but for this one, it will open outward toward the right. You notice how I had the numbers written on my Post-it notes, and I also had them color coded, and that is just an extra reminder as I'm working along to keep these bits in the same orientation, in the same direction. If you are making a project where you have a lot of pieces out at one time, that is definitely helpful so that you don't get anything glued down in the wrong place. Once again, I'm just lining that up and pressing that into place. Okay, and so now we have this portion of our cover all set. Here's where I'm going to add my pocket. So I'm going to do that first flip toward the outside, and then this one is going to go here. And so I've got my Post-its ready, and we will continue to use our 2 glue combo. If you're wondering how I'm able to get these videos made while we're on the road camping, I do have a bunkhouse in our camper, and I just set myself up with a little mini workshop here, and so that is working great. Now I once again want to line that up into the score line. Keep it level and even, and then press that into place. So this is going to be the pocket on the left, and as you can imagine, with all of these paper layers in place already, it's getting to be quite thick and sturdy, and that is exactly what we want. Now I do have a pocket prepared for this side as well, and I have to just add my glue. And then work that down up against the score line. Now we have that side in place. You want to seal this up before I get too far along and forget. So now these are going to act as top loading pockets, and I think that is going to be great for adding all of my loose papers or pictures that I don't want to adhere directly to the book. This is also going to give us a little bit of extra room in the pocket rather than having this side sealed up as well. Now I want to work on finishing these remaining inside pages, and I think that it would be a great way to mix and match these patterns if you were using up a collection, but I happen to have a full sheet of this particular pattern, so I'm going to continue to coordinate these as I work along. Now, because this is measured to be the card size 4x6 and the envelope is a little bit larger, I'm not going to get a full 6-inch cut from this paper 2 times over to cover these pockets. So I do have that for this inside here, and then where I am going to gain a little bit of extra space is to combine some patterns. So this would be the same size as our full-size page, but I'm just going to layer these up so that I can get the full coverage that I need. And this is another great way to use your offcuts as you're working along, and so you don't wind up putting them in your stash. And I just think this moose paper is so cute. Now we aren't going to see any mooses. Meese? We're not going to see any meese here in Michigan, but we did see a really cute chipmunk, and so I kind of wish I had some chipmunk paper. I named him Francisco, and he likes pistachios. So I'm just gonna keep adding all these papers until I get this covered. Francisco seems to like the cornhole tournament. Now we have cornhole, but we are not good at it, so I didn't even get it out because I don't want to be that embarrassed against those people who are doing so well. So I think that we'll just enjoy them playing instead. If you have a fun game that you like to play during your summer outdoor activities, just let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what y'all are doing with your summer fun. Now I'm gonna cover these as well, and I'm gonna continue to use the trick of layering my patterns just so that I can get use out of all of the paper from the 12 by 12 collection. This definitely is not a project that you want to endeavor with a 6 by 6 paper pad. I guess you could do a whole lot of layering, but it's kind of easier this way. And then I get to use that up and make room in my stash for new collections, which will probably be Christmas, because that is our next series coming up. We're going to be doing our Christmas in July when we get back from our camping adventure, so be on the lookout for that. When I have a set date, I will give an update, and I'm hopefully going to also be able to do a small haul for that so that you guys can see what I'm working with. But as we are not home to get deliveries, I do have to put that off just a little bit until we get home. But I will be catching you up on that. When I know more, then you will know more, and then we'll be ready to enjoy our Christmas in July series. Now, before I go any further, I do want to add a little bit of extra detail to these pockets. And so I cut my little recollection doily die here with a crisp white paper, and this is just going to break up a little bit of those patterns. And you see I did add my adhesive only to one side so that I don't accidentally seal this up. I'm just going to cover the bottom corner of my pocket there, and then this collection had some really fun 2 by 2 cut aparts, which I did cut, and then I used the same green cardstock as a nice border. And so this is just going to give a lot of extra detail and fun to my pockets. And of course, extra bulk is always nice in a mini album. So I've got one cut for this side as well, and I'm just going to be mindful of where that glue is going to land. And then here is an image for this side. Now, I did mention these 2 by 2 cut aparts, and this collection did have a nice variety of different sizes, and so I thought it would be fun to incorporate a couple into these pockets. So of course, anytime I can use the 4 by 6, I'm pretty happy, because I don't always get a chance to, and they do have some fun images here. I think if you are just being outdoorsy, you don't necessarily have to consider this a camping album, but some of the imagery is fairly specific. So if you like that, then this would be a great collection to pick up. And so I've got 3 of the 3 by 4s and then 1 of the 4 by 6. I'm just going to tuck that into that pocket. You see how nicely that slid in because it's top loading, whereas if we had to squish it in from the side, we wouldn't have nearly as much room. And I think you definitely have some space in there if you want to include some additional keepsakes or flat mementos. And so I've got the same combination of 3 and 1 for this pocket as well. And then there's plenty of room on the inside pages here for some larger pictures. So 4 by 6 is going to fit perfectly if that's how you print them. We have a selfie printer, and so I can print my 4 by 6 pictures and add them here, or add some additional layers with some journaling prompts. So here's the inside all set. I do want to cover the back with more of that fun red and black buffalo plaid, which is always going to be a favorite. And now we have a nice finish surface all the way around. Let's add a little trim. I did put a bit of my double-sided tape here off camera. And this is just going to hold my trim in place before I add the additional layers. I picked a beautiful stitched satin ribbon from Really Reasonable Ribbon. Tacking that into place there, and then I'll sandwich that between the pattern and the base. So this is more of that plaid, but I did add a layering pattern of wood grain there just for a little extra detail. So again, I got those fun colorful cardstock borders working around. Now, of course, I want to break up a little bit of that busy paper pattern so that we can add our focal image. And because this is going to be so narrow, I'm going to kind of focus all of these bits toward the right hand side, and that will leave me room for my flower arrangement. So I do have one of those image cut aparts cut with a circular die, and then a round border cut from the nested die, and then I pop that up on spacers just to build the dimension. I don't typically add foliage or leaves to this before we add it or before we add the floral arrangement, but because this was not quite wide enough for that circle die, I am covering a cut edge, and so I wanted to be very intentional where this specific leaf landed so that I could cover that up. And then once again, I'm going toward the right of center just to make sure I have room for everything that I want to add here. Now, my flower arrangement is kind of small. I only have one flower because there's not quite too much room, but because I added this specific leaf that was die cut, I added another one to this side, and that's just going to give me the right amount of balance. And then normally I would not mix my ribbons, but in this case I felt like this ribbon, the stitch satin, would just really blend in with those leaves and it wouldn't be a noticeable layering detail. So I'm going to substitute this beautiful stitched burlap ribbon. Now, we don't have that in stock, really reasonable ribbon anymore, but I think if you had just a regular burlap ribbon, that would work perfectly. And because it's a little chunkier with more texture, I think it works pretty well for an outdoorsy or camping style album. And then of course I do have my regular netting here, and I switched out my ivory burlap string to one of a more natural color, and so that's just going to blend better. I did take out the center of this lotus flower and swapped it out for the stamens that coordinated a little better than the ones that are yellow that originally come with that flower. Now you see I can very carefully set that in, and then I'm not going to cover any of the words on that image. So we're going to be adding that with hot glue and very careful to preserve that image. And I'm also being aware to keep all of this arrangement within the border here so none of it hangs over the top. Of course, I do want to add a couple of charms, and these are mushroom. I think these are perfect for any kind of outdoorsy album. I haven't seen any mushrooms here. It is well booked for the holiday, so I'm not being too nosy and looking at anybody's site, but I think that this natural kind of charm will work perfectly. Now, if I had a camper charm, that would have put it over the top, I think. Let's add these strings to that hot glue. And then cut off the excess, covering those cut ends with a button. I've got a couple of sequins here to add, and that will be the balance for our flower arrangement. I'm just gonna pick 3. And add those with my tombow. And that's going to be it for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this project. If you did, let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. If you check the description, you will find links for all of our socials. And as always, I am wishing you a happy and productive day. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.